Hi, good morning, everybody. My name again is Paul Klug. I'm from Bolsonelli. I think we have a pretty good program for you. This program actually is sort of an extension of one we had about a year ago. Dan had joined us on a panel for exiting your business, your manufacturing business, how to sell to a third party. And we had a nice panel that day, and it dawned on Dan and me that at the end of that program, the questions started to really get to mostly Dan, who was the business owner on the panel, and the questions were really focused more on succession planning than they were on sales to a third business. So this program seemed to be a logical next step for us to get back together and talk about this very important topic that you as business owners and advisors, I'm sure, run into all the time. So we're going to make this really simple this morning. I'm going to introduce these guys. They're going to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about themselves. Jamie from CMA is going to talk a little bit about some statistics going on succession planning. And then really this is meant to be interactive with you, the crowd, today. We hope that you have questions. Please raise your hand. We'll try to get the microphone out to you. And let these guys share their expertise and their experiences on how to transition and plan for succession. So, without further ado, I'm going to just pass the mic around. Dan, I'm going to start with you.
Thanks, Paul. Dan Hauk, our family business is TSI Holding. Third generation, my grandfather Jack started a steel distribution business up in Hazelwood in 1953. 1980, as part of his succession plan, he sold the business into 7 kids. And from about 1980 until 2012, 2013, the family of 7 shareholders invested in and acquired a variety of different businesses. So our family owned a steel distribution business, metal fabrication and manufacturing business, a jewelry manufacturing and distribution business, packaging manufacturing business, and some aviation assets. I'm one of 17 grandkids. The 7 shareholders, out of those 7, my father John is the only of his generation to work in any of the businesses. They had a buy-sell, they had a succession plan, they had everything kind of dialed in, and it was working for many years, and then it wasn't. So about 4 years ago, the family was kind of breaking up into 2 factions, those who wanted to continue to perpetuate, those who wanted their money. And so John, my father, who's 65, decided we're not going to ruin our family over all this. We'll just sell the businesses, pay everybody out, and then those who are active investors will kind of regroup on the other end. So we have now sold 3 of our 4 family businesses. We've got 1 original business left, and then we've also acquired 2 new businesses, but not with this huge family. It's my father John, one of my aunts, and myself. So pretty interesting last couple of years for our family.
Good morning. My name is Adam Randall. I'm a shareholder at Bolsonelli. Paul is my law partner. I practice primarily in the trust and estate practice planning group, so I spend a lot of time guiding families, doing the planning on the front end, trust, wills, that sort of thing, tax planning. Spend a lot of time in business succession space, working with business owners on their estate planning documents, buy-sell agreements, other vehicles to transfer wealth down to the next generation. And I also spend quite a bit of time on post-death matters when a person passes away and the estate has to be administered and the trust is administered and the business is part of the estate. That's always a very interesting thing and something that we're very comfortable handling. And my favorite part of the practice is really working with families when there's a business involved and helping with the transition.
Good morning, Jamie Wolf. I'll try and sit up tall since I'm the shortest of the group here. CMA, our business is all about maximizing your talent, and a good portion of our clients are family businesses, privately held businesses, and some of the most impactful work that we do with those individuals and families is helping them transition from generation to generation in order to try to keep both the family whole and the business whole. And I appreciate Dan's story because, you know, best laid plans, right? You think you've got it all and you're set for the future, and lo and behold, opinions change, desires change, agendas change, and we're going through our own transition at CMA. The current 2 partners are selling to 3 of us who are their successors, so we will be wrapping that up with Paul's help here towards the end of this year.
All right, and I'm Chris Sire, I'm CEO of Sire Industries. We're an aerospace and defense manufacturer out of St. Charles County. I'm 3rd generation. My grandfather started the business in 1957. My story is a little bit, I had no interest in coming into the family business. I studied finance, went in after I graduated college, went into investment banking on the mergers and acquisition side. I worked here in town for A.J. Edwards. So we advised a lot of clients on the advisory side. So I saw a lot of transitions from privately held family businesses to public companies. So for several years I worked on family business transitions on the outside. Then circumstances changed, and my dad approached me about joining family business, kind of see what you have right in front of you, and so I jumped in. Joined Sire Industries on the sales side and kind of came in through sales strategy and finance. And today my brother and I run the business. Mark, my brother, is our chief operating officer, so he's on the operations side, and I'm kind of more customer facing, forward looking as CEO. In 2014, we engaged CMA to do a family transition or an ownership transition for our business. My dad, 2nd generation, had been in the business for 40 years. He was ready to retire. So we were kind of feeling in the dark, so to speak, on what to do, and then we got introduced to CMA, realized that there was a very good process in place, and they were perfect help for us. So we engaged them in 2014, set up the process. We transitioned leadership first. We're in the middle of transitioning ownership right now. My dad is pretty much retired, and it's been a great experience for us. So I kind of have, personally, I can offer a little bit of experience from the outside as an advisor, and then on the inside of going through it ourselves. So that's my background.
Okay, so I'm going to pass it on to, sorry for the migrating microphone here, but I'm going to pass this back to Jamie, and she's just going to give us a little bit of insight into transition, succession, and kind of how successful companies can be.
So one of the most often thrown around statistics in terms of generational transition is the 30-13-3 percentages. Some of you may have heard of those, and it's the research done by John Ward back in the 80s that only 30% of family businesses make a successful transition from generation 1 to 2. Only 13% then make it from 2 to 3, and only 3% then make it from generation 3 and beyond. Now that's somewhat debatable. It doesn't necessarily account for things like intentionally pruning some of your businesses and one portion of the family maybe taking on something different. But regardless, the case that it makes is that succession planning and generational transition is difficult. Some of the other statistics that are thrown around, privately held businesses employ 60% of the US workforce. They create 78% of the new jobs in the United States and account for about 60% of the gross domestic product. So regardless of whether you believe the exact number, privately held businesses are critical to the viability of our country. And so even if none of those numbers are meaningful to you, just selfishly, the reason you should want to have a succession plan is because there's likely to come a day in your career where you want to do something a little bit different. You don't want to be involved as much in the day-to-day business. You'd like to try some new things in life, and you've got to have someone that can take that business into the future if you'd like to step away. Additionally, times change, markets change, competitors change, products change. You may realize you are no longer the best person to be the key leader in that organization. You need new skills, new ideas, new talents, and if you don't have a successor, it's really hard to continue the viability of that organization going forward. And if you're like many of our clients, a lot of your wealth is tied up in that business. So if you want to be best suited to pull that wealth out, you've got to ensure the longevity of the organization going forward. So a lot of good reasons to make succession planning one of your key priorities.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. So we, as I mentioned, we're out looking for new businesses, so we're talking to business owners all the time. And it's amazing to me how many business owners we meet that have done no preparation for the sale of the business. And we meet them and they say, okay, I'm ready to sell it. And so then you start asking some of the basic questions and you find out that they haven't really done any preparation whatsoever, whether that's legal, whether that's environmental, whatever, they've done no preparation. Just to add on to Jamie's point, in my opinion, it takes at least a year, maybe two, to prepare a pretty solid succession plan or exit strategy or get the business ready for sale. I met with an 82-year-old owner the other day who basically said, okay, I'm ready to sell now. And I asked them a couple simple questions and they're not ready. And it's going to probably take them at least a year to get the business ready. So just to piggyback on what Jamie said, it's a process and it takes effort, it takes focus, and it's just not something that a lot of business owners want to spend time on, which makes sense.
So Dan kind of stole my thunder a little bit there. I was going to say that preparation and process seem to be two common themes, and I want to kick off some questions around those topics, and if you guys could think about some questions as well, that'd be great, and load them up here. Dan, not to put you back on the spot, but so can you describe a little bit about what those questions you asked to that business owner were and kind of where you think that person should have been as opposed to where they were?
Yeah, sure. Just off the top of my head, audited financials. Sounds simple. A lot of business owners don't get them because they're the owner and they know what they got and it's all their stuff. Phase 1, phase 2, environmental stuff. It's something that you're probably not going to do in the normal course of running your business, but it probably needs to be done if you're going to sell your company. Any sort of management transition. A lot of the business owners that we talk to are the founder, the operator, the owner, the salesman, and they don't really have any other executives or any other people who, in their absence, can run the business. Those are just off the top of my head.
Does anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I was just chiming in a little bit on, the process that you need to go through to transition or sell. Very good process to go through. A lot of times what we deal with as estate planning attorneys are, we deal with people that haven't planned for the involuntary transfer, which unfortunately happens with disability or death. And so I sort of look at the process as you want to be able to do it on your own terms. That's everybody's desire. It's everybody's goal is to be able to exit when they want to, but life happens and sometimes that doesn't happen. So I've seen a number of business owners who have estate planning documents, whether it be a revocable trust or a basic will, and they own a very successful company. Like Jamie said, a lot of their wealth is tied up in that company, but they might have a will that doesn't even mention the business. It might just dispose of all their assets to a spouse or to their children in equal shares. And that's probably not the best plan because there's generally some way that it can be structured in the estate planning documents to make sure that the right people end up with the control maybe, and that even if you're trying to balance the equity of the business, you can do different things to keep people in charge. All that can be done in the estate plan. So that's, to me, and I'm obviously biased because I work on those sort of documents, but that's sort of the first step is to make sure you have the house in order in case something like expected happens, and then move on to the sort of when I get ready to transition out, what can I do, how can I do it in the most tax efficient manner, those sorts of things.
To pull on what Dan said and maybe build a little bit on what Adam said, the management transition is critical. So try to think of this as a two-phase process. The ownership transition in an ideal world comes last. You should already be thinking about what are the skills that you need in the future of the organization in order to really achieve the strategy, and are you developing those today? Are you developing your leadership team into an executive team? You probably have played the role of chief sales officer, chief marketing officer, maybe even chief technology officer, chief operations officer. The business hopefully is growing to a size where you are no longer one person can do that well. So start working on that management team, make them a true management team with management meetings and management responsibilities and responsible for key metrics. And then that way, should a tragedy happen, your house and the business is in order. They can take over and run it in an emergency until you're able to find some kind of backfill.
Chris, I'll just follow up with that, maybe if you think it's already been asked and answered. So, from your perspective, I know you guys, it sounds like your family has done a lot of preparation and planning. Can you maybe just let the crowd know, what are maybe 1, 2, 3, top priorities and/or just things that you've seen and accomplished that you'd say, if you don't do anything else, try to do this, 1, 2, or 3 things as you prepare your plan.
So use time, get time on your side. These guys have mentioned it. This is not a fast process from my perspective. So I'm coming into the business or coming into ownership, so it's a little different for me versus my dad and my mom who's selling the business. Just watching the amount of professional help that they've had to get over the years, from attorneys to state advisors, the trust, it's very complicated. Everybody's situation will be different, of course, but it's not something like they mentioned, you just kind of wake up and say, hey, I'm going to sell tomorrow. There's a lot of preparation. So just be eyes wide open. The hardest step is the first step. So just it's one of those things that's on your to-do list that's just easy not to do. It's kind of cliche, but it is very true. It is really important leadership transition before ownership transition. Jamie mentioned that. I guess that depends if you're a family business, if you're transitioning your children or family members into the business. If you're just exiting the business completely with selling to a third party and affiliated, that might be a little different for you. But if you do want to transition to a family member, that is a long process. Spend the 2-3 years transitioning. Like I said, we're in year 6. Leadership has completely changed. Switched over ownership. Like I said, we're probably still in the 5th inning of the ownership change. So just, I guess, use time wisely. That's probably my biggest advice.
To build on what Chris said about, if you're going to sell to an outside party, the leadership development or transition may not be as important, which is true. That said, we have worked with a number of clients who are acquiring organizations, and we will help them identify the level of talent that is in the organization that's being acquired, and it has actually impacted the purchase price of some of those businesses, decreasing it for our client because they realized they didn't have any strong management talent in the organization. So even if you're going to do that, it could help increase the amount that you're able to get for the business if you have a strong team.
I would just add too, I think all those are very important points, the emotional side of it. I think that often gets overlooked. You got the business, you got your people, your family. How emotionally ready are you to exit the business and have it be over? In certain situations, owners sell the business, stick around, work for the new owner. But there's a large emotional component that goes into it, especially with founders and with generational family businesses that we've seen. I would say my father, John, is still going through that today, and we started this process about 5 years ago. So the emotional component and I guess the emotional readiness or prepared emotionally, that's something I would just add. Yeah.
Just give a quick example, and that's 100% agree with that. When I was at AG Edwards, we would advise a lot of family businesses again in transition, and I can't tell you how, the vast majority of our clients were due to family conflict, and the biggest source of conflict was the individual that was selling says they want to sell, but they don't want to sell. And we would have 85-year-old founders saying they would want to sell to their 60-year-old son, and then there was a 45-year-old grandson fighting in a room about who's going to own what, and grandpa won't get out of the business, and we had a 90-something-year-old that wouldn't sell. It was a mess. So if you think you're going to sell and you want to sell, really want to sell, because that makes life hard across the board. So emotional attachment to the business is a very important piece to
I'm not worried about running out of work anytime soon.
So I'm going to pick on Adam for a second. So, Adam, a lot of business owners, they don't like to meet with their lawyers, and so the day that they have to come meet with you is not always exactly the happiest day in their life. It is for you, but not them. Yeah. But for the business owner, what questions should they be asking you, though? So they come in and they, what should they be asking you, and what are some of the suggestions that you make when it comes to, digging a little deeper here, some specific recommendations as to, how to transition, probably more so ownership than management, but what are some of the more specific things that come up in that meeting?
Yeah. It's sort of the key question, right? So you have a client come in for the first time to meet with the estate planning attorney, and obviously the 800-pound gorilla in the room is you got to come up with all these hypotheticals that involve the person sitting across from you passing away. So that doesn't always sit real well. But once you sort of get beyond that, you move to different hypotheticals, right? And then once you get the person engaged, they sort of understand that we're dealing right now in hypotheticals, but yet they're important. So one of the things that comes up for the business owner client is, how do you see this business passing? What's the best way? What do you want to have in your documents, in your trust, in your will, to direct the disposition of this? And the biggest question that comes up for a lot of people who have family members, usually children, who want to continue, who they see or they envision continuing this as their legacy or working in the business, is, okay, do you have, it's really easy, let's say if you have one child and that child wants to be in the business. If you have multiple children and you've got children that have no interest in the business and you have other, so I've actually coming through, it's been taking a long time, as most of these plans do, but I have one client right now that has a very successful, closely held family business, 3 daughters, 2 of them are actively working in the business and the one has nothing to do with it. So how do you tackle that situation? And you got to find out, because owners have different opinions on it, and there's not a right or a wrong way. Some owners say, well, these children have been working in the business for X number of years, and I sort of feel like they've been acquiring their interest by working in the business, and so I want them to have the interest. And then other folks are saying, you know what, I have 3 kids, I love them all the same, even though one has chosen to go a completely different direction. When I die, I want everybody to get equal value from my estate. So in those sort of situations, you got to be a little more creative, because if most of their wealth is tied up in the business, they may not have that liquidity to give to child number 3 who doesn't work in the business. So you see if that's available. You look into things like life insurance and setting things up for the child that's not in the business. So we try to make sure that the client's goals are keeping family harmony. I mean, you could never make sure that there's not going to be any fights. I mean, there's no way you can ensure that 100%. But you try to do the best thing that you can. Obviously, there's also the issues between spouses in own businesses. Sometimes both spouses are involved. Other times, one spouse runs the business and the other spouse has nothing to do with it. But yet, they want that surviving spouse to still have the benefit of the business. If the business owning spouse dies, make sure that spouse is comfortable for the rest of his life or her life, but could never foresee that spouse managing the business. So they have to think about, okay, do we bring in another trustee who could run the business and be compensated for doing that while my spouse is living? Do you have a child that's ready to step in and fill that role? Or how old are the kids? Where do you see them? The biggest thing, and I'll pass it on after this last comment, is the biggest thing as an owner, when you're talking to your attorney, you can't hold back. You have to tell how you feel, and you have to admit that you might have one person in your life that would be really good at, maybe one child that would be really good at this, and another child that's not. Because it doesn't do you or them any good to sort of just say, well, I want to leave it all to them equally and let them figure out how it's going to get divided up, because that's a recipe for a fight, or at least at a minimum, a big mess when something happens. Please.
So, the good news about being a psychologist is people don't seem to have any problems holding back with their psychologists, but so we get all the stories. My best advice on family harmony and minimizing the conflict is to start as early as possible. And what I mean by that is when the kids are little, if you have that option, start talking about the business and your hopes and dreams and goals and desires and values around the family table, and continue to reinforce those values and talk about those values and what the kids want to do in the future and what you want to do in the future. So really start those lines of communication very, very early. Have family meetings, even if the family meetings in the very beginning are just, hey, let's go look at the warehouse, or whatever the case may be, or what are we going, what's coming up this week at school and work for everyone. So get them in the habit of talking and sharing and get that dialogue going, so there's a lot of good practice when the hard decisions come.
So I'm going to pause there. Does anyone have any questions yet? Anybody? Yep.
What are you seeing? Are you seeing more generational switch or less generational switch? You mean are more companies trying to sell to their kids or pass ownership to their kids? Or are they now more people selling to just the market and the family getting out?
I personally work on the succession side more often, so I don't necessarily see a lot of the companies that are selling out, although I'd love to see those clients ahead of time, because there's a lot that can be done to transition the wealth that results from the business sale back down to the next generation in the best way to protect the family and be tax efficient. But my personal take on your question is that it always sort of ebbs and flows. It doesn't really change with the economy or the tax issue, the tax laws or anything like that. Everybody's situation is different. Most of the time, it just has to do with the practical sense that most business owners who have children who are interested in business want to pass it down to them if they are interested, and if there's not a likely candidate in the family, then they look to exit it. So I think it's always going to just depend mostly on the circumstances of the family and of the owner.
Yes.
You talked about the emotional component of buying a business. You want to touch upon the part where the seller has overvalued because of that emotional component? They feel like that company is worth $7 million, while your financial analysis of it shows it's only worth $5 million, and they're building a $2 million tangible because of what they feel like it should be worth and what it actually is worth.
I'll say something. I can actually touch on that one real quickly before Peggy goes to Chris, and that is, because I work in the transactional side a lot, and I just did a presentation for another group a couple days ago, and one of the biggest, I had a slide that said deal breakers, the biggest deal breakers. The number one on there was valuation, and so it's not unusual for a business owner to think that their business is worth twice as much as it is, and it's always part of the preparation and the planning is to get out and talk to your accountant or another financial advisor and do a gut check and say, if I were to sell this business, what could I get? How much is, because there's other professionals who can help with that. That's not my bailiwick, but there are professionals on the valuation side who can really help with that and give a good gut check.
I can comment real quick and then I'll pass. On the valuation side, if you're going through estate planning with your attorney, one of the things that the attorney's going to ask is how much you think your business is worth. And every now and then going out and spending some money to get an actual valuation done is a good investment because it helps you with your planning. So most of the time we see those valuations done when the business, either when somebody passes away because it has to be valued for tax purposes, or if somebody's going to give away part of the stock and they do a transaction involving a gift. But there's no reason why you can't have. We have a lot of great valuation firms in town that do that sort of work.
I'll add real quickly too. It took us at least a year to negotiate our deal, and a big part of that were the purchase price terms of the deal. Partly because we're PhDs, so of course we have to overthink everything and make it really complex. And ultimately, what we ended up doing was we had someone who we felt like was our advisor, someone we felt was really on their side, their advisor, and then we had had a third party that we felt would be pretty neutral, and we took a look at the middle ground.
I was going to comment, what you described, I think, is the case every single time you do a selling business, your house and everything else. So what we did is, like Jamie just mentioned, we had a third-party company come and value our company. The comment I wanted to make was, obviously there's two sides, you have a buyer and a seller. In our business, within the family, you've competing interests. You have the sellers, being my parents, that want a big price, but at the same time, they want a high price. My brother, we want a low price. We want to keep in the family business. The seller has to decide, do you want to check like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or are you willing to wait over many years through a sale process, a long, slow sale process. There are pros and cons to having a high valuation, low valuation, from a tax standpoint. So there's a lot of, and then also the way we were valued, and I'm sure this is fairly common, is you're valued on a minority ownership basis. Your shares are worth less. If you have a majority in the business, your shares are worth more. And all that has to get reconciled during the sale negotiation standpoint. So the owner has to be, you have a lot, even within the family, there was a lot of competing interests, and we all are cognizant of that. We're all family, and we didn't have a whole lot of conflict during our process. But it's a lot to think about, at least even when I was on the advisory side, you don't realize it until you're in the middle of yourself. But there's a lot of ways to slice and dice evaluation for different reasons. So I agree with Jamie, just having a third-party evaluation done every so often is good, just to set a baseline, kind of get the rules of engagement.
Anybody? Oh, sure. So do you ever recommend soliciting proposals from other buyers or the family members to come, I can get $5 million if I sell it to the guy outside and you want to buy it for $3?
Yeah, I think each situation is different. I think if you've got multiple shareholders, for example, I think Jamie mentioned it earlier, what's each shareholder's objective? What's their lifestyle? What's their goal? In our situation, we had 7 owners and only 1 was active. So we had 6 passive shareholders. And all of them had families, and all had lifestyles, and all had opinions that changed over the years. So if you would have asked them 20 years ago, should we go out and get an outside offer from somebody just to see what it's worth, they would have told you no. You fast forward about 6 years ago, they would have said yes, let's find out. So I think each family and each ownership situation is different. I would also be careful with if you're going to go try to do that, what that does to the family ownership dynamic or the family itself. Because I think if you go out and solicit an offer, and maybe it's worth it to one owner, but it's not worth it to another, now you've created this internal conflict that maybe wasn't there before. So each situation is different, I would say.
Along those lines too, if you're trying to keep the goal of family harmony in mind, if you're thinking about transitioning into one person and maybe one child, and then you have other children that aren't going to benefit from that business after it's transitioned to that one child, are they going to be resentful because it looks like brother A got a sweetheart deal from dad? So I think sometimes it's nice to get have a third party that's not affiliated with the company and all come in and give the valuation, and then use that. Whether you're selling it to a third party or you're transitioning it by selling out to one of the members of the family.
Just very tactically, I would encourage you to write down your goals. What are your priorities? They may shift over time, but if you have those in front of you and those are concrete to you, it can help you decide what trade-offs are worth it.
Good. Question on service industries. So marketing firms, your firm, we're not divulging all the information. We have no assets to really sell, right? All of the assets are here.
In their brains.
In the brains. So how is that, we're talking about a lot of companies selling, businesses that can be valued in a different way than we can as a service industry. Talk a little bit about that.
I can certainly share our story. I don't necessarily, and I'm sure Adam and Paul Oh, yes, yes. If you didn't hear the question in the back, it was, what are thoughts on how you might transition a service business? Since you really don't have any assets to sell, how can you make that work? And I'm sure Paul and Adam have some opinions on this as well. But our story at CMA, it's been a very long transition, again, because we have to make everything far too complex. But back when I started, almost 12 years ago now, the message from the current two partners, really to all of us, was we intend to sell this business internally. That is our choice A by far. If no one is capable or interested in taking it over, we'll look at alternative options. So we all knew that their goal was to sell internally. And after a few years, the messages started getting a little bit more clear to a handful of us that we see you as someone who could be an owner of this business someday. Let's talk about that from time to time. So over the course of the years, we've talked about that. Are you interested? Here's what that might look like. Here are some of the things you need to start taking on, how we're going to groom and grow you. So, 7 years of this before, and I am the most junior tenure-wise at CMA. One of my partners has been there, I think, 15 years, and the other one has been there 17 or 18 years. So long time of these conversations. And then about 5-6 years ago, because it took about a year to do the deal, they said, it's time, we're ready. We're not ready to give up ownership, but we are ready to designate the next group. Here's our terms, let's start talking and negotiating. So financially, the way that we were able to make it work out, the current two partners capped their profits in that year of 2015. Everything that the business earned above and beyond then, and the three of us that are taking over are the highest producers in the organization, so we have the most ability to control that. Everything earned above and beyond that would, after taxes, be split 5 ways. Current two partners keep that, they've just been running a credit. And so that has helped pay down the cost of the business over the last 5 years. We'll go to the bank, get a certain set amount of money so that they each get some decent checks, and then they're going to take a note on the rest of the business.
So we do have a little bit of that dichotomy on the panel. We have Dan and his family who sold to a third party for the most part, and Chris and his family who've done a lot of planning and preparation. So I thought I'd drill a little bit down on that and sort of flip the tables for these guys and say, Dan, in your instance, could it, should it have gone the other way? And Chris, I'll let you kind of touch on the same as to, did a sale come up to third parties as opposed to family, and kind of, you can give the reverse on that as well.
Yeah, I think for us, so I mentioned earlier, back in 1980, my grandfather sold it to his 7 kids, 7 equal owners, and his thought process back then was if they're equal owners, we'll keep them all together as family. And ironically, the equal ownership is kind of what broke the family apart down the road. I would just say we worked very hard through the mid-'80s, early '90s on our internal succession plan. We had a buy-sell. We had a written-out strategy on how we were going to consolidate the business and how it would kind of move through the generations. And everyone agreed to it. It was signed off on, and my grandfather was still alive. And then in 2004, he passed away, and things changed. People changed, opinions changed, lifestyles changed. And so, I think our story, looking back on it, had we known what it was going to become, we probably would have bought out the passive shareholders earlier on. We probably would have forced that to happen maybe in the early 90s when things were still in transition and my grandfather was still around and still had influence. Because really it was the passive shareholders that ultimately kind of blew everything apart. I often tell owners, Jamie mentioned this earlier, but I often tell owners I meet with, when we're talking to them about potentially buying a business, we had a great plan, and it was working for a long time, and then it wasn't. And then once it wasn't, we became that 3%. Statistic that we tried like hell for many years to not become, but it happened, and people change, people's lifestyles change, people's careers change, the businesses change. All that stuff, kind of throw that into a big blender, and then all of a sudden, we had 4 shareholders who wanted their money, and we had 3 that wanted to continue to perpetuate and grow the businesses. So, that's what I would say about us.
So, my dad was one of 5 kids, and he had 4 siblings, and just kind of like Dan described, grandma and grandpa decided the best way forward was to equally divide the company between the kids, and off we go, everybody is happy. 3 of the siblings never were part of the business, and my dad and his brother were active in the business, and in the 90s, so before me, there was, from what I understand, a little bit of conflict, and the business bought out the 3 passive shareholders. And then my uncle Kurt, my dad's brother, we bought him out about 12 years ago. He was ready to do something else with his career. There was no conflict or anything. So coming into the transition to my generation with me and my brother, it was a pretty slim family tree. It was just my dad, which made things a hell of a lot easier than a lot of situations that I've witnessed. So we were fortunate. We didn't have the 6 competing siblings with different interests and everything. So once the tree was trimmed, so to speak, the question, I guess, Paul, is, did you look outside or inside? So it totally depends on the owner, what they want out of the sale. Going out to market to a third party for selling our company, you could get, I'm just guessing, maybe twice what we're buying the company for, just because of what the market has done since we started this process. Third party value, strategic buyers tend to be a lot more willing to pay up, that sort of thing. But that wasn't the objective. It wasn't, my parents are comfortable, they're fine. They want to keep the business in the family. I have kids, my brother has kids. It's a terrific family asset that we're proud of. It's obviously a great employer for me, my brother, and possibly our kids down the road. So the objective wasn't to maximize every penny. And that's why we didn't look outside. We get solicited. I probably get a call once a week or an email or a letter from a private equity firm or somebody looking to buy, to put feelers out. So the opportunity is certainly there, but we chose to keep it in the business, keep it in the family for non-financial reasons.
I got a question real quick, to add on that. So now it's you and your brother, and you're both younger. So are you proactive?
Very young.
Yeah. You piglet. So proactively, what are you doing to perpetuate? Are you thinking about that? Because now you have kids, your brother has kids. Are you starting to think about, okay, how are we going to avoid? We don't want to break up our relationship as a family. So are you starting to think about what you're going to do moving forward for those generations ahead?
So yes, I'm thinking about it. It was one of those things that I literally have written on my desk, and it's easy just not to do it right now. So my kids are young. I have a 2-year-old. So I have 4 boys, twins that are 9, and a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. So we're far away, but we're not. Everybody says it happens in a flash. So it is. Yes, I'm thinking about it, and now we're done having kids. So it is time that I start engaging in a real way with estate planners. We do have trust and all that kind of thing, but now that I guess we have a little more clarity on our kids and my brother's kids, we need to start doing that. Now's the time. And you start putting the rules in place and the parameters, and you answer. This is something I want to bring up earlier, and it's a good time now, I guess. You start setting up structure to answer questions now before they're asked. So when you get down the road, you know that the expectation for your kid is to work inside the family business for 3 years or whatever term that is, whatever parameters you decide to set up, so you're not ad hoc when the time comes, and then you're making decisions on a piecemeal basis. And so that's on my big to-do list over the coming years, is to set up that structure and answer those questions ahead of time.
And additionally, at this age, in addition to that's super important, it's time, spending time with the family. So to the extent that Chris and his brother can get together just for fun, let the kids play, be kids, be really close cousins, those bonds will go a long way when tough conversations may need to happen in the future.
And from a legal structure standpoint, actually being in Chris's situation, being young is almost more challenging. Because he's got these 4 young boys that he just mentioned, and he may have a goal to say, I'd love to see, whichever one of those 4 work in the business someday. But if he and his brother were to put together a buy-sell agreement right now, and the unthinkable happens, and something happens to Chris or his brother in a relatively short period of time, does the other one just get the right to buy the other one's interest out, which would never allow the youngsters to be able to come into the business, or is it structured in some way to where the deceased brother's share gets to be held in trust for a certain number of years, where the deceased family benefits from that for 10, 15, 20 years, and then there's somebody that determines at some point in the future a triggering event where one of the youngsters who then becomes of age gets to work in the business. So those are challenges, but they can be dealt with, but they take a lot of time and they take a lot of effort in getting things structured appropriately.
Yeah, so I would just mention too, so we're kind of rebuilding our family business, but with less people involved. We're taking some of the things that we feel like we did wrong in the past, and maybe wrong's not the right word, but things that we wish we would have done differently going forward. So like I mentioned, it's my father, John, and one of his sisters that are the owners and investors. And we've got a totally separate buy-sell agreement. We've got a totally separate operating agreement that had we had what we have today back in 1980, I think things would have been a little bit different. But, hindsight's always 20/20. And, we didn't have the vision to see what this all would become and what all would have changed and transpired. So.
Sure. I was wondering if you'd all would agree with the comment that having kids with an interest in a privately held business who aren't involved is a recipe for disaster eventually, that they're going to want to have a liquidity event.
Yes. I've got 2 siblings. Neither one of them are interested. Neither one ever been involved. Yeah, I think
if you don't have a market to sell your stock, it would seem to me you're going to want the money. Then, yeah, I've got some good value in my brother's business.
Yeah, and that goes back to the emotional side too. I mean, if you've sacrificed and built and committed to a business, and you got a sibling next to you who hasn't done anything for it, they're not going to have the same tie to that business like you did, the people and everything else. So yeah, yes, the answer, from my opinion, would be yes.
I would think you'd want to avoid that situation, buy them out maybe as part of the upfront plan, if you don't want to be involved in business.
Yeah, I wish we were like Chris's family, to be honest with you.
So yes, it definitely can be a disaster, but the sooner you know that as the patriarch or matriarch, the better. Because if you're still alive and able to do the planning, and you got child A that wants to keep running the business and child B that doesn't, then you just need to be open with all 3 of them and say, look, I'm going to do this with the business for this child, and I'm going to do something else with other assets in my estate. Now, if that doesn't happen, and the person passes away without doing that plan, then the best thing you can do is hopefully they have a buy-sell or something in place at the corporate level that does allow one to buy out the other. Because having, when there's multiple siblings, I've barely ever seen one where there's actually equal work done. There's usually always one that does more work, and it causes a lot of tension, and the other one doesn't do nearly as much.
So it's a challenge, but it's doable. If that's important to you, what I have seen work well is where the kids in the business are paid market rate, just like everybody else in the business for the role that they perform. And just like their sibling outside of the business is being paid for whatever work that they do. And then the shares of the business, hopefully there's some dividends that are in cash that's able to be put off, given the number of shares held. The non-working sibling should be on the board, most likely, to help keep them engaged with the business, assuming they have an interest in the ability to handle that and help at least understand where the business is going. So that's the best case scenario. And then also I work with a number of family business clients that no one works in the business. They're merely family owners and all have different roles within that, but no one is really allowed to work in the business because that can cause some tensions.
So again, I'll speak from personal experience, but I have a sister that's completely uninvolved in our business. She's never been a shareholder. She lives in Boston, and so that's never been a problem, with this passive shareholder situation. But it does present other issues, and I'll mention that when my parents go through their estate planning, my brother and I are going to be the shareholders, and it's worth X. And then they look at my sister Carrie and they say, well, they want to divide wealth equally, but it's a challenge when the business valuation rises. Hopefully it rises a lot, or falls, whatever. That changes, but your estate planning is in real time. So their challenge right now is, okay, they didn't do passive ownership to my sister, but they want her to share equally in wealth, and how does that work? And so I don't have a good answer, but I just will mention that that's a challenge that they're wrestling with currently.
I'll just add to that, from the family business side, that without picking on you, it worked in our family because my father-in-law said, who wants to buy it? And who's gonna pick up the slack? So my brother-in-law bought the company, and my father-in-law said, look, I want what I want for the business. It was valued properly, and sold it, and it's in his estate. So, it's a challenge because, everybody else, I worked in the business, my wife worked in the business, but at the end of the day, it's the best thing for the family is to separate everything out and walk away. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to be okay, but yet at the same time, at the moment, I wasn't willing to write a check for the amount of money it would take in order to buy the business, and whether I want to work with my brother-in-law, and he's not in the room, so I can say it. That was, that's a decision we all have to make.
It comes down to what the goals are of the person that's owning it and passing it down. If the goal, like Chris's example with his family, is for his parents, if the goal is to make sure that everyone has equal value when they pass away, then the only way to really be sure about that, and you can never be 100% sure, but to do your best as the parents who are doing the planning, is you have to have that business valued periodically, and you have to review your estate plan periodically, and you have to maybe have life insurance in place that makes up the difference if you don't have other liquid assets that are going to make up the difference. So then you're visiting that every couple of years to make sure that when that event happens, that you've done as equal of a distribution as you can financially. But there are people that decide that that's not right. That they don't necessarily, again, nothing against your sister, but I've had clients that would say, I don't really care if she gets less because I've got these other two kids that are busting their butts every day in this business. And I had a client that did that, and he left the business to two of his kids, and he set his estate plan up. He just knew that they were going to get more value, and the other two didn't. I mean, they weren't left with nothing, but it was clear that they didn't get the same amount equally. So, and I can't judge whether that's right or wrong. It's everybody's personal decision.
All right, so we're right up against almost 5 to 9. Unless anyone else has a last question, I think give it up for the panel. Thanks for your attention this morning. I'm sure these guys will stick around for a few minutes afterwards. And Tom, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, let's have another round for that awesome panel.